How does a company actually become AI native? Do you have a guidebook for that?
If you start to reach a point where an agent is no different than an employee, you're going to need to start to do roles and responsibilities.
The promise, I think, of 2025 has been that this is going to be the year of agents. When it comes to agents right now, what are the limitations that you actually are seeing?
So the first part is,
what's one AI product at Google that you think has the potential to be 10x in the next few years? What are you personally bullish on that you feel others are sleeping on?
I do think that is real.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you think that means SEO is dead?
A very good question.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have Mo Abdula here with me. Mo, thank you so much for being on the 100x channel. Pleasure to have you over here. My name is Sridev Ramesh. I am an entrepreneur, educator, and YouTuber. I run a company called 100x where we teach applied AI to founders and developers mostly. So absolute honor to actually have you over here. Let me start by asking you how you use AI on your day-to-day life.
First, let me just say thank you for having me. The honor is absolutely mine, Sridev. AI I use in so many ways. I'll give you one very personal and one which is work-related. Work-wise, you can imagine my day sometimes can be full of meetings. And a lot of times, just as the clock starts to wind down to about 10 minutes to go, I'm always worried about actions. You know, who's going to take actions, who's going to follow up, so that the meeting, concludes productively. And one of the things I've done recently is I actually created a little agent that's using the transcribed notes to summarize a lot of these actions and share them ahead of time. So we project them now before the end of the meeting. We say, is everybody clear on those actions on the owners? Yes, yes. And then we meet meeting. So that's peace of mind. Second way you should have is I have two young adults, 20 and 22, and they're infinitely curious. There are times they've been coming back and asking, like, what about this? What's happening here? World events. And I love conversing with them. But sometimes when it's basics, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give you, Gemini to talk to. So go and just talk with them and tell me what you found out. And then once you've covered the basics, we can go to the advanced level.
Has that worked out?
80% of the time.
Okay.
80% of the time. They, the 20%, they tend to just go with Gemini and never come back.
Right. Interesting. So you obviously use AI in your daily life to solve a lot of problems. How do you think other people who are, startup founders, etc., can go about adopting this within their teams? Because I'm sure that everyone currently is aware that they need to learn how to adopt this and how to use this in their companies. But how does a company actually become AI native? Do you have a guidebook for that?
To be AI native, today I think the age-old constructs of design thinking come into play in here.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So design thinking was the evolution from us building something from a software point of view and then experimenting with the user and then iterating. Design thinking actually says you want to design a particular experience. You want to create a particular thing that was not possible before in a single step, and then you work back from it. So I'll give you an example from an AI perspective. One of the ways in which companies would, for example, create things like surveillance, they would think about the hardware, in terms of engineering out, and then they would bring in some software to do things like recording, etc. And then they would bolt on the idea of, can I do analytics on the video?
Right.
Maybe they'll charge for them. That's the old classic. To be AI native, so what I actually would want to do is to be able to do prevention using surveillance and provide real-time analytics so that I can better improve the response from let's say a police and or, the authority that's trying to use this technology. To do that, I must be able to streamline a lot of this technology. To be able to stream it, I need to stream it to an AI model that processes this from the beginning, as opposed to storing it and creating multi-step. So AI native starts to think about, how do I eliminate these processes to get to the actual output faster? And then right from that.
So in a lot of ways, it has to be kind of founder-led in these companies in order to do this.
Absolutely.
And I think that can be accomplished with these hackathons and workshops for middle managements and things like that. Awesome. When it comes to enterprises, I think one of the challenges is to navigate around the compliances, because they are essentially creating a system that's going to be widely used across the entire ecosystem. How can more teams at enterprises ease into this process? Like if I were a manager at an enterprise, how can I go convince my boss that, hey, this is something I think we should do and this is something would be relevant for my team?
Oh, absolutely. I think a great question on this one. The prudential example comes into, to play again. Uh, when first and foremost, most companies are just short on resources. I have never been in a place where somebody would say, I have enough people and I have enough talent and resources. And so the idea that I can actually achieve more if I empower and enable everybody else to be a little bit more productive, a little bit more thoughtful around augmenting, task, going just from simple task automation to actually task augmentation is a very powerful way that resonates with a lot of these middle managers and sponsors. The trick, however, the additional steps is three things. The first is being able to speak to the value in a more clear way. Productivity is a very elusive word. So can you now quantify productivity by I actually can complete the task faster? Or I can use less resources to complete the task? Or I'm able to lower the costs associated with that. And increasingly, we're starting to share some of these frameworks and benchmarks with a lot of our customers. That's right. So the second thing is working through it from the lens of compliance, which is a word used. Today, compliance happens to be somebody else's problem. I tend to innovate. Actually, it's going to become more shift left for compliance in the same way that it was shift left for security. So I'll give you an example. How can I use a platform that allows me from the beginning know that I'm not going to send any PII information so that I can be compliant in this experiment? Well, things like Vertex AI platform actually allows you to do that. Like it's a click of a button that says, do not share any personal information, don't send it to an LLM, localize the data, only store it, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So there's the idea of compliance as an enabler that I can achieve compliance better because I am using things like AI.
Right. Interesting. I recently, I thought that agent space that was launched today was like absolutely phenomenal. I'm very excited to try it out.
Me too.
The promise, I think, of 2025 has been that this is going to be the year of agents. I think the last few years were the years for LLMs and image models, and they've gotten exponentially better. When it comes to agents right now, what are the limitations that you actually are seeing in terms of companies or users actually using these agents? What are those initial limitations that they face in order to really let AI take the decision there?
So I was sharing earlier with a colleague that much of what's happening inside of the enterprise is that people are having to build their own agents so that they actually further their understanding. Classic customer service agent.
Right.
Today, you will come in, converse with me. I will give you some data around, how do you find this information in the catalog? Now you want this agent to upsell you.
Right.
Is that a single agent? Or is there a different agent that thinks about promotions and things that I should give to Shudev because I know Shudev, I know what he cares about, and I know, so I want to do, is that two agents? So a little bit more of an understanding. I think that area will come just as people get a little more experience. Then comes the word used, decision. This is, I think, the hardest part. I think one of the new notions that we're going to see is the governance around an agent.
Right.
If you start to reach a point where an agent is no different than an employee, you're going to need to start to do roles and responsibilities. What are you authorized to do versus what you need to delegate up? So these types of flows and decision making criteria will be one of the things that enterprise will get smarter about. Can I enable and empower this agent to make a decision within these limits? Can I actually operate? Can I give you, like the example we saw on stage today? Can I give you, from the plant point of view, a discount?
Yeah.
At let's say 5% because I'm authorized to, and then anything above, I will bring a human in the loop or not.
I think it makes sense to do something like that, to get a human in the loop somewhere down the line in order to make these decisions. But do you think there will come a time anytime soon where that doesn't happen? Where, like, for example, for those of you watching, there was a keynote where a sales agent had to take a decision on whether to give a customer a certain amount of discount. Now, do you think there will come a time where the agent will be given enough authority to make that decision by themselves?
Yes, I do. I think within parameters. And for that to happen, there's a number of enabling things that will happen. They include things like, you know, decision authority, protocols enabled to do that, but also very importantly, the ability to reason and understand what is an improvised data set that I'm collaborating or ideating with you on versus what I'm actually what's factual or a system of record. So this is one of the things that we've been focused on in Google, differentiating between the two. So in this case of a particular discount, somebody might be saying that you can have a very you could imagine a conversation that says, "Hey, Shridev, I'm actually buying 5 items from you. Why don't you give me a discount?"
Right.
It's very like real life example
Yeah.
bartering. Well, from a fact-based point of view, you need to decide what's the margin on this. What discount can I do? Is five? Have I done this before for other customers? Has this been done by another human agent?
And that would in turn require integration with the other systems as well, like a CRM.
Exactly, with the CRM system. So that will be an enabling component in there. Absolutely.
Right. Very interesting. Um, Out of all the AI capabilities that exists at Google, which one have you seen the most adoption in terms of startups and enterprises, and which one among them have driven the most amount of return of income?
Yeah, great question. So
ROI.
in the first wave, absolutely the adoption of models for startups was very, very critical. Those who were building their own, verticalized agents and so on needed to access a lot of these models. If you look at the work that we've done with device manufacturers, Samsung being a flagship, and then there's a whole wave of them, adoption of things like circuits of search or enhancements around, editing and so on. We're working with a lot of movie studios, or those who provide for movie studios to create virtual stuntmen and women. The idea that you can actually create a particular video and slice it into 1 minute episodes, because we now are in the age of 1 minute episodes. I could learn from my children. A lot of those kind of creatives was a lot of the first wave, and it was all anchored around the core model and its capability. Increasingly, that will continue. I don't see that as stopping. So, for example, moving into coders, developers, or what we see today with data analysts and so on, which is making what was difficult and specialized easy. The second adoption that we're now starting to see is the Vertex platform. And of course, by extension, its ability to do agent and start to venture to things like this has been one of our most, I think, highest growth rates in the last 6 months. The idea that you could improve search continues to be perhaps the first interface that most humans will go into. The first task you often do within task is to search for something. So now imagine you're in a retail state and you're actually searching. The better improved recommendation that comes back to you, the search that you're able to converse with around this product that says, hey, is this product actually oriented this way? What have the reviews all said before? Like, you're not having to actually click on every review.
Right.
Can I summarize it for you? All of this has been great ROI. We've seen some of our customers tell us that they've seen 17% increase, for example, for catalog items that have been AI powered, both on search, better recommendation, and descriptions. We've seen people do better click-throughs because the search results are coming, much more personalized way, and so on and so forth. So huge ROI when you're talking about it in those terms.
Along the lines of what you just said, do you think that means SEO is dead?
Well, very good question. Absolutely not. I think it's evolved.
Right.
I think it's evolved in we've reached a point where search engine optimization has been covering around things like keywords and so on and so forth.
Correct.
I think we're going to now evolve much more around personalization. So, can I understand the identity that I have? Can I marry that with search engine capabilities and improve the way I serve you in a targeted way in the right moment? So, I'll give you an example. We are working with some video analytics company around sports. So, you want to analyze a particular sports moment. Historically, if you're trying to search for that particular in a classic way, you'll say, "Show me this match," etc. And but what you really are trying to do is you're trying to get into show me that moment in time where every player, for example, missed a penalty,
Right.
and show me all the results that are coming into that. That particular idea of that missed penalty, and then putting something like an ad that you would want to say, hey, do you want to improve your penalty skills? Or let me show you regret moments that with no regrets. These types of sentiments are going to become the new things that we augment, as opposed to you have to do it just on basic things like keywords.
Right. Very interesting. Um, do you think, do you have like a timeline where all of code gets automated?
Oh, wonderful question.
Like how long would it take for a model to generate me a very complicated app like Uber or something like that?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
We're not there yet. I think you need a few things: the context, the ability to make sure that the integration is actually sophisticated, the ability for you to understand, some of the, depending, of course, on the classes that you're trying to interface with. There's still a lot of building blocks that I think need to get a little bit integrated in a more seamless way before we get in there. Um, in my assessment, timeline is very hard. I think about it more on the building blocks that need to be coming in place. Today, we're past generating code fast. We're past assisted coding.
Right.
That's actually seeing a great deal of adoption and great productivity inside of Google and outside, where developers are getting recommendations. We're now getting into the stage where you're able to understand how do you modernize and take, legacy tech debt, which frankly is one of the biggest issues that you would have with building a sophisticated application.
Mhm.
But to be able to, from scratch, understand how you want to do usability, user interface, and so on, we still have some way in there. There are a lot of startups innovating. They're integrating Gemini into their own models. But I think maybe 12 to 24 months, before we're there. But I wouldn't put a bet on this because the pace of innovation is just,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe 6 months from now, we'll actually have it.
we'll have it. And they'll CLI type of things that they describe, we actually have
Yeah.
a few of them. But in terms of, the hardest part is just how do you actually do the interface and usability?
There is this interesting thing that I've been seeing where whenever someone tries to build a product, especially when it's like a wrapper product, tomorrow Google or one of these companies releases a new feature and then they have to sort of make pivots to their startups. Do you think it's wise to build products in today's era, or people should generally stick to services? And if they should build products, what should be the defensibility?
That's a great question. I don't think there will be a time when products will, um, per se, sort of cease to become an attractive proposition.
Hmm.
I think the trick is leveraging this moment in time to actually reduce the risk associated with building products. Products tend to be the vision of a particular, construct, need that people have brought in.
Uh-huh.
And the hardest part, other than, what's classically known as product market fit, is scale of that product beyond the initial use cases and the adopters.
Right.
And so, how do you reduce the risk of that? Can I actually launch an experiment in a very, very sort of sophisticated way at a low cost? Could I actually do the testing with a variety of customers with synthesized data that I don't have to take a long, long time to build and then do it? Can I simulate a lot of these costs associated with it? Imagine a product that is like a supersonic flight.
Okay.
You're trying to bring back supersonic.
Mhm.
Imagine the costs associated with trying to do something like the engine, the routes, the so on and so forth. Well, now when you start to combine AI with high performance computing, the availability of all these accelerators, at a frankly accessible and I would say cost effective manner, because you can now run these things, can borrow them for a short period of time, and you design your skill set is to design the right experiment and the simulations very quickly. You can start to decide that I'm going to do with these two particular routes. Now I'm going to do safety checks and so on and so forth. So the idea of going from zero to prototype and prototype to first product and product to scale has shortened all of that using this moment in time. I don't think a pivot to services is always the absolute alternative. I think
Right.
it's actually centering product around the way in which you can minimize risk.
But products are always inherent with risk, don't you think?
They are, yes. So you just have to reduce it. You can't eliminate it.
Right. All right, Mo, we're coming to the final section of this conversation. This is a rapid fire, so I'm just going to ask you questions. Try to answer it within one word or one sentence. Yeah?
Let's try.
Awesome. What's the biggest AI myth you wish people would stop believing in?
It's replacing humans.
Fair. If you had to give a TED talk on AI tomorrow, absolutely no prep, what would the topic be?
Has to be more than one word. I'll use one word. It's the humanity of AI.
What are you personally bullish on that you feel others are sleeping on?
Databases. I know that sounds so techy and specific, but databases, they are the unsung heroes of the AI world.
What's one AI product at Google that you think has the potential to be 10x in the next few years?
AI agent space.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. You answered even before I finished completing the
Agent space, like one product, it's agent space.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Mo. This is an absolute honor and an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. A really big fan of the show. Continue to do what you do, Shirav. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Awesome.